Did you know that there's a tool used by welders to cut metal that gets hotter than the surface of the sun? Stay tuned for more. Hello everyone, welcome to XSTEM All Access. I'm Tamara Robertson and I'm excited to be a part of this series showcasing some of the coolest minds in STEM. As your guest host and a lifelong welder, I am so excited to chat with Chief Wellness Welder Shanen Aranmor. Shanen is a certified welder and a former college professor of wellness and psychology who's helping people build confidence and skills through welding fabrication and sculpture. Would you be surprised if I told you that welding is a STEM career? It's true. Welding is a highly technical job that involves many disciplines of STEM. Plus, it's a skill that's absolutely critical to our society. You may be surprised to learn the many things that would simply not exist without welding. I am so excited to dive into the world of welding and share why it's an important STEM job. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've spent the last decade teaching welding at events globally as a means of empowering young people to build the future that they want. Now, the youngest welder I've taught was 3, and the oldest, well, let's just say learning never stops. As an engineer and fabricator trained in multiple disciplines of welding, I've gotten to use these skills on shows like Mythbusters and Mythbusters Junior, as well as coaching welders how to be instructors to share their skills to empower others. I teach a lot of skills, but I especially love teaching welding because it truly is a universal skill that helps reconnect hand and brain, and it serves as a pathway to both the trades and STEM. I'm so excited for you to learn more with us today from our special guest. Drum roll, please. Now it's time to meet our amazing guest, Shanen. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tamara. We're really excited for you to be here at Weld Like a Girl. People ask me all the time, what does welding have to do with science? And we're about to tell you today. We're so excited.
I'm so excited too, so let's jump right into our first question. Now, welding is one of those careers that has a lot of stereotypes. Now, there's the examples that are widely thought about that welding is dirty or messy, that welders don't require an education, and of course the old one that it's not a career for us girls. As two welders, you and I obviously know that these myths are not valid, but can you give us more information to help debunk these misconceptions?
Absolutely. So I can tell you, as a welder and a welding trainer, I've been in facilities where I have had to wear surgical booties and a surgical hairnet and a mask to keep the room clean. So it's very, very old school to think that welding is going to be a dirty job. There are some jobs that are like that, but that is not the majority. The majority of the jobs are going to be in a fairly clean environment with fresh air. But it depends on what you're building and what the environment is going to be. Now, as far as the myth that it's a man's job or it's a dirty job, women can't do it, I'm going to tell you that it has nothing to do with being male or female or anything else. What it has to do with is, do you have a passion for this? If you have a passion for a job or for a career, you're going to excel at it. If you want to learn, you want to practice, you're going to be really, really good at it. When people want to become a welder, most of the time they will start with either a certification, which could take the quickest I've ever seen is a 16-week certification, or they could go up to a 4-year degree in welding, welding technology, possibly welding engineering. So there's a huge variety of educational paths you can take.
I think most people don't realize that welding requires a strong technical expertise and that welding education is very STEM focused. And the range of educational levels within the welding industry really has something for everyone, from certificate programs and apprenticeships all the way up to advanced degrees. Now, another thing that people might not be aware of is the diversity of roles within the field of welding. Could you tell us what some of the different career paths that exist within welding are? And what are the different types of jobs and industries you can work in as a welder?
There's a million different things you could do. So you could be in manufacturing, where you're manufacturing parts, cars, for ships, for boats, for planes, for tanks, for the Department of Defense. I mean, there's so many things. For example, someone has to make all of the submarines Someone has to make all of the aircraft, all of the tanks. Everything has to be manufactured. We have to physically make those things before anyone can use them. There's a great person that I met at from the Pentagon. Her name is Adele Ratcliffe, and she said, there is more than one way to serve your country. You can certainly join the military, but another way that you can serve your country is to manufacture things that we need as a country to make us stronger. Maybe that will support the government, maybe that will support the military, and maybe it will just support your community locally. There are so many different areas you could go in welding. You can also become a welding trainer. I've had a lot of little girls that I've met with recently, especially like 5th grade girls are on fire about engineering because I've heard about you could make cool stuff. And then they come and take a class with me and they say, oh wow, I thought I wanted to be an engineer, but now maybe I want to be a welder. And I'm like, wait for it. What if you were a welding engineer? What if you were a welding engineer? What if you made and designed the machines that people use to weld? Or you created the procedures that we then go and build skyscrapers or tanks or whatever. I mean, there's so many options. So like welding is not a box. Welding is more like a tree, and the branches keep branching and branching and branching. Oh, and I didn't even mention there's art, there's education like in high school and middle school, there's community college, there's so many different things.
I love your analogy of a tree branching off with many different types of welding industries and careers. And the work that welders do is so important for our society. They basically create the infrastructure that makes up our entire world. So let's dig a little bit deeper though. Take a look. Welders really do make a big difference in our world. As middle and high school students, we all wondered if we'd ever use the math and science content we learned in school, like in geometry, chemistry, or physics class. Shanen, how do these core subjects help prepare someone to work in the field of welding?
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I have been a science nerd probably since I was born. I have loved and breathed science. That said, I never really felt super comfortable in math. And so I kind of avoided it, even though I was in maybe higher math classes. I didn't always get it. But what I can tell you now is that every single day as a welder, I need algebra and geometry and even trigonometry. I use science all the time, but those math pieces that I was missing before, I've had to learn as a welder in the field, because you can't build things without understanding how they're going to fit together. So not only are the math topics important, but we also use a lot of chemistry and physics in the field of welding and also in blacksmithing.
It turns out that all those middle and high school concepts are really pretty useful. In fact, as an engineer and fabricator, I use these concepts every day. Whether it's something as complex as the mixing ratios of cells to virus in a vaccines process, or something as simple as monitoring the temperature change in a resin pour, the concepts of science literally touch every part of our day. Now, speaking of particles that heat up, Shanen, can you tell us about metallurgy? What is it, and how is it related to welding?
Okay, this is one of my favorite topics. Metallurgy is the science of metal. So what we're talking about with metallurgy is, how does it interact? How does it react? How do you melt it? How do you shape it? How do you form it? How do you bend it? And what does it do when it's exposed to other things? So metallurgy is one of the most important things in welding. We're just about to go into the shop and we're about to see some demos, and you're going to see metallurgy in action.
It's my favorite part. I'm so excited. We get to see some demos and explore a little more about the science involved in the welding process. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so the first demonstration is going to be welding. And so welding is the full fusion of at least two pieces of metal. So full fusion means that you can't really tell where one piece of metal ends and the other one begins. So this is going to be a full fusion. It's going to be in around the 5,000 or 6,000 degree field Fahrenheit. Okay, so Anthony is going to show us what we're going to do is we're going to take two pieces of metal. We've got two pieces that are about 1/4 of an inch thick. We've got a little magnet here to hold them up. What he's going to do is he's going to tack them together. A tack is like sewing. Sewing like you're just holding two different ends together, just like if you were sewing something. And then that's going to make it so that it doesn't move while he's welding. But before he does that, I want to show you something. So speaking of science, so I've got a welding machine here that has a computer inside of it, but we got a spool of wire. The particular kind of welding that we're doing right now is called GMAW, or gas metal arc welding. If you looked at this, you would think that there was a spool of copper in here. It's actually copper coated steel. And I'm going to ask the audience out there, do you know why we would have copper? You're probably right. Copper is a good conductor of electricity. The other thing is copper allows the wire, the steel wire inside, to go through this gun cable fairly smoothly. So as we squeeze the trigger, you're going to see the wire's going to come out here. The spool moves just like a thread. And then this copper coating is going to allow us to have the electrical contact that we need. Now this is too long, so I'm going to retract this back. And then my friend Anthony over here is going to do a little brief demo with welding. Now, just as a side note, there's a little more chemistry going on because we have a cylinder of gas. And that cylinder of gas in this particular example is it's filled with both an inert and an active gas. Not active like reactive, it's not going to explode. We have an inert gas in there, which is argon, and then we have an active gas, which is carbon dioxide, which we're exhaling. So it's not a dangerous gas, it's just an active gas. It means it can react with other things. So that gas is going to create basically a bubble of protection over the weld, and that's going to allow us to have this protection so atmospheric nitrogen and hydrogen can't jump into the weld. And if they do, they cause porosity, which causes welds to break. Okay, go ahead. We have a full fusion of steel from this plate to this plate. This is called a T-joint. A T-joint means it's making like the letter T. And we've got both sides, they're melted through the toes of the weld. If we were to put this in a vise and hit it with a hammer, it would not break. That's a very strong weld.
How cool was that? As a host on Mythbusters, I've had the joy of welding some enormous pieces like the Dandelion of Doom and our crushing dominoes on Junior. Now, it's always so amazing for me to see the students go from the small pieces they learn on to where their imagination and the tools take them next. So Shanen, as welders, we get to use a lot of really cool tools like the welder that you just showcased. Could you share with the audience another metal fabrication technique? Maybe something like the plasma cutter, for instance? Also, I noticed you're wearing some special attire to weld, including a nod to our leader, Rosie the Riveter. Can you tell us a little more about why you chose these particular clothes?
So one of the things that's really important as welders is that we wear what's called PPE, personal protective equipment. So we were just welding, and welding requires a welding helmet that you saw Anthony wear, plus a welding jacket, welding gloves, safety glasses. So over here at Plasma, what we're going to see is that Lexi is going to have what's called a shade 5, and I've got that same thing on right now. Plasma cutting is possibly one of the coolest things on earth, even though it's so hot. Now I'm going to ask a question to the audience. Do you know the temperature of the surface of the sun? some of you know, it's approximately 10,000 degrees. The plasma cutter that we are using is 16,000 degrees. So it is hotter than the surface of the sun. So I'm going to show you something first. I'm going to show you this torch. Now, this torch that we have right here has what's called a drag shield on it. And that means when Lexi's doing her demonstration, if she wants to touch the metal, she can, and it won't hurt the machine and it won't hurt the material. But inside of this torch, we've got some cool physics going on, and I want to show you this. So I'm going to actually show you the whole torch inside. So this torch body holds everything together. And so the drag shield is an optional piece, but the rest of it is not. So right here we have this contact tip, or this nozzle that's going to aim basically a lightsaber stream, a plasma stream. Okay, so that's going to have a hole in it, and that's going to angle all of our energy. And then what we've got is an electrode. And this electrode, I'm going to try to show you a little bit better. This electrode means that electricity will be going through it. The next piece that we have is what's called a swirl ring. And you might be able to see that there's these little holes, and compressed air comes through here and it spins around. So we have compressed air plus electricity right here combined, and they create plasma, which is the fourth state of matter. Liquid, solid, gas, plasma, right here in my hand. How cool is that? Oh, favorite toy ever, favorite tool ever. All right, so we talked about safety. One of the most important things with the plasma cutter is that you keep hands and feet inside the ride at all times. So what you're gonna see is Lexi is gonna have both hands on the torch. She's also gonna lift up this little safety, and then she's going to squeeze the trigger. The first light that you're gonna see is called the pilot light. So this pilot light is a little white light. After that, the plasma will be generated. You're gonna hear that compressed air coming out. That's just to keep the debris from getting in the torch. Okay, so what's gonna happen is when Lexi is close enough, the electrons are going to flow. That gas is gonna ionize, it's gonna jump the gap, and it's going to actually cause a plasma stream. So the first thing that you're gonna see is one color light, and then once the plasma is actually generated, you're gonna see metal actually being melted. Thank you, Lexi. Let's make sure your shade bag is down. All right, awesome. All right, so this is very hot. I'm gonna grab it from the bottom where there isn't as much heat. You're gonna see that because of physics, we were able to create something beautiful. We were actually able to create molten metal. On the back, this is called the draw size. Some of that molten metal cools so fast that it actually sticks to the metal. The rest of it falls into the barrel. So physics and chemistry allow us to melt metal using a lightsaber.
As a superhero scientist, you had me at lightsaber. Now, how amazing that you're holding the fourth state of matter right in your hand. And it's hotter than the surface of the sun. If you think that's cool, here are some more fun facts about welding and plasma cutting. How cool. Shanen, I'm so glad that you emphasize safety. It's important for students to know that only skilled individuals should handle this equipment. The good news is that if you want to learn how to use tools like the welding machine or the plasma cutter yourself, there is very likely a program in your community where you can go and get started. Let's say that a student is interested in pursuing a career in welding, or maybe they're just interested in learning the skill for fun. What advice would you give an aspiring welder to get started?
That's an awesome question, Tamara. So what I would say is take a short class. If you have an opportunity to do a class in your community that's like a make and take kind of class, or go to a career day where you're going to get your hands actually on some welding equipment. Other opportunities might be community colleges. Oftentimes they'll have one class in the welding department that will be for the public. It might be called welding survey or welding sculpture or something like that. But just to get your feet wet, just to get an idea, like, is this something I even want to do? Now at my shop, we have classes for the public so that they don't have to buy all of the equipment. They can just come and taste it. What I would usually say then is once you've had a taste of welding, then look at what your options are. Do you have community college classes nearby? Do you have a welding facility that is specifically trainer oriented? So it's a 6-month program, a 9-month program, a 2-year program. Do you have union halls or apprenticeships nearby? Do you have a university that has a welding or welding engineering program? So you really want to explore your options. The main thing that I would recommend to young people is think about what all of your possibilities are. Don't put yourself in a little box. So many people think, oh, I live in a farming community, I would be welding for farming. That may be true, but there's so much more out there. You could be building submarines. You could be welding solar panels. You could be welding stainless steel in the food and beverage industry. You could be welding pipelines so that people can have heat and air conditioning and energy in their homes. There's so many options. Just don't limit yourself, but look and see. And the other thing is the American Welding Society, aws.org, they have a career tree. They have a lot of resources that are free for students. You can also become a student member of the American Welding Society for free. You just go in, log in, and join as a student member, and then you've got a lot of resources. So even if you're not yet a welder, but you just want to know what there is out there, you can start to connect to a community that's been doing this for a lot longer than maybe you've even been alive, and they can help share those resources for free.
That's great advice. Get a taste of welding to see if it's something you want to pursue. Who knows? You may just try it and find a brand new passion. Shanen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tamara, for stepping into Weld Like a Girl and getting a glimpse into the science of welding. We really appreciate everyone being here, and we hope you've learned something and learned also that it's so cool to have science and math involved in everything that we do. Every time we make something, we use science and math.
I really enjoyed chatting with you about welding and sharing a closer look at the science involved in this very important skill. Whether you're interested in being a welder or working in one of the many industries that relies on welding, or maybe just looking for a creative outlet, it's worth getting to know this critical and in-demand skill. Thank you for tuning in today. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel in the description below and follow us on social media to get updates about new episodes. You won't want to miss any of them. Plus, you'll get access to fun weekly content for students and teachers, such as STEM facts for students, classroom tips for teachers, and so much more. And don't forget to check out the full library of episodes available on demand right here. Each one has an NGSS aligned lesson plan for teachers to use in the classroom. And each lesson also includes an optional social emotional learning component. With your parents' permission, tell us how you were inspired today by tagging us at USA Science Fest, #XSTEM, and me at The Real Tamara Robertson. Keep up with me through social media and YouTube here, as well as checking out the Seekers of Science STEM comic series and Tinkering T-Rex Maker Book series, including fun DIY builds and science experiments to do at home. I had a blast being your host today, but don't sign off just yet. You'll want to stick around through the end of this video for a fun trivia game that you can do in the classroom or at home. Have fun and good luck!